How are you doing? Welcome to Valet Stories. This is Alex here, and as promised, I told you I would share some of the cars out of my car collection. Of course, we're going to start with my number one car, which is my Acura NSX Turbo.
The year is 1999, but the NSX did come out from about 1990 till 2004. This one is Kaiser Silver. It's a very rare color, and for the year, I think they only painted 48 cars this color. For the year also, for 1999, they only made 222 NSXs, and this is number 216. Now, what's amazing about this design started in about 1984 when Yuhara-san, who was the chief engineer, he's kind of considered the father of the NSX, had a ride in an F-16 fighter jet. And he was so inspired by it, he wanted to make a car that mimicked that design. Not only that, he actually wanted to compete with Ferrari. Ferrari at the time was kind of dominating, even over Lamborghini, Porsche. And so he wanted to go directly after them. And his goal was to create a car that would handle better, more reliable, and honestly came in at a lower price point. And this is the car that did it. NSX actually made manufacturers change the way they designed cars. Not only can they make a fast car, an exotic car with all this crazy amount of power, Honda made them realize that you actually had to make a car reliable. And McLaren, who later owned an NSX for years, said, you know what? That's my new benchmark. It's no longer Ferrari, it's no longer Lamborghini. Of course, they're gorgeous, but they had to be as reliable as the NSX.
Now, their goal was to go after Ferrari. Ferrari was their benchmark, and they wanted to not only compete with it, they wanted to beat it. And they wanted to do it with a V6 engine, which they did. So this NSX at the time, which only produced 270 horsepower, competed with the Ferrari 328, the Ferrari 348, the Ferrari 355, and then later the Ferrari 360. This car still had all the power, handling, and reliability that superseded those Italian designers. And what they focused on was handling and performance. So what did they do? During the final stages of production, they ended up going to Ayrton Senna, was at the time the world F1 championship race car driver, to drive the car. Not only drive it, he owned several NSXs himself. So he gave the final input on how this car should handle, and this is what you have today. Now, what makes this NSX badass is, of course, the power plant that it has. I took this over to Lovefab, which is located in northern Michigan, and they basically made this engine a monster. Now, here's the difficult thing. People don't realize this is a V6 Honda engine. It's hard to pull power out of this I think it was a C32 engine. So there's not like a Supra or a GTR where you can make these things 1,000 horsepower. To get 1,000 horsepower out of NSX was damn near impossible. But this one, impressively, I could have probably gotten close to 800 horsepower, but I wanted conservative, and I wanted it to be reliable, and I wanted it to last. So Cody over at Lovefab gave me about 600 plus horsepower, about 400 foot-pounds of torque, and this car all weighs in right about 3,000 pounds. So this car moves. It moves quickly. And it really impresses a lot of people. They think, oh yeah, it's pretty, it's nice, it's shiny, it's clean. But when I see it get up and compete with Ferraris or even McLarens and walk away from them, that's impressive. Let's get to the nitty gritty. This is the heart of the beast. Lovefab designed, built turbo. Single turbo located behind the wheel back there. He took a 3.2 liter, 290 horsepower engine and maxed it out. Didn't max it, but he actually took it up to a conservative 600 horsepower, 450 foot-pounds of torque. With this, people have no idea what they're about to meet. So anyway, you really can't see the intercoolers in the front. You only see some heat exchangers, but this car is fast. This car only weighs 3,000 pounds and has 600 horsepower, which means it really competes with about 90% of the cars on the road, maybe even 95. There are not many cars in stock form that come up to me and don't go away with a beating. And that includes a Huracan, McLaren, Porsche 911 twin turbo. This car rocks.
Now, what got me into racing like that was a horrible event called Wanna Go Fast. And yes, I'm talking to you, Blake. I was perfectly fine with about 400 horsepower, which was my first design of the NSX engine. Well, when I took it to Lovefab, but then I started racing and I was doing good at the first couple of events, and then the car started walking away from me. So I said, you know what? I want more power. So I sent it to Lovefab, let them have it for another year. Not a year, but they had it for about 10 months. They pulled the engine, they stroked it, they had a lot of fun with it, and that's when I came out with my final iteration. So my top speed now at Wanna Go Fast is between 157 and 160 miles per hour, which isn't bad for a car that originally went about 120 miles per hour. Another unique thing I have in this car is I changed all of the badging over to Honda. Now here's a funny story. A lot of people might not know this, but Acura and Honda are the same company. I know a lot of people are saying, duh, but a lot of people don't realize that Acura was only created because they figured Americans were not going to spend $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 for a Honda, so they rebranded it as a new company called Acura, which was their luxury line. One of the most proudest things I have is the signature from Mr. Yuhara-san, and that is located in the glove box. He actually signed the car, and he doesn't just sign any car. He's very specific that even though he designed this car, think of it as being a chef. You're a chef and you just gave someone an incredible steak and they grab a whole bunch of ketchup or A1 sauce and squirt it all over the steak. How are you going to feel? So for me to manipulate his original design, he wasn't very partial on signing cars unless he approved and felt they were worthy. So this NSX he did feel was worthy, all the work I've done to it, and it made me feel proud. So another thing I love about this car, it actually fits the motif of a lot of movies that are coming out nowadays, which is Fast and the Furious. This car's been in Fast and the Furious number 5. That's the one that took place in Brazil, and it was the best time. I think it was recorded in 2010, and I had a phenomenal time. People think it was recorded in Brazil. It was actually filmed here in Atlanta. Atlanta, we film a lot of movies here, so I'm constantly getting calls to please use my vehicles in certain movies, and we'll get into that into a later episode. But this one was featured in Fast and the Furious 5. 6, I'm not sure where they recorded. 7, I think they did Atlanta, but I wasn't available. And then number 8, here in Atlanta again, yours truly. So it was a fun time. It's remarkable to be a part of such a franchise history, regardless on where the franchise is going. It's no longer street racing like it used to be back in the day, but this is a pleasure and an honor to be a part of that franchise series. Not only that, it's been in, there was a TV show on Speed Channel years ago called My Ride Rules. And it was basically 4 cars that competed against each other, and basically who had the best car. This was one of the cars that was chosen, and I was in that show. Being a part of the NSX community is actually a pretty tight-knit family is the best way of putting it. Back in the day, before I got my NSX, I had a BMW, and the BMW family was way different. But when I got into the NSX family, it was, I really loved it. In fact, I probably joined in 1997, 98, and I still have some of my best friends today that I've developed out of that group, and I love it. I mean, it's an incredible group. The camaraderie, of course. They didn't make many NSXs, so when you see someone that bonds over a car that's kind of rare, that's a special thing right there. Now, also with this car, I had the opportunity to go over to Japan and to see where this car was made at. Not only that, they have signed kind of a celebration. They call it NSX Fiesta. Here in America, we call it NS Expo, which happens annually. This year, it's actually happening because of Corona. It's going to be happening next year. But it is an incredible appreciation and love that they show for the NSX. They take you to the factory. They take you to the warehouses. They take you to the test tracks where these cars were basically tuned and performed, and we got to meet some of the test drivers. So that's something you'll never forget. And I think the last time I did that, I went with a couple of my buddies. That was in 2001, which was the 10-year